Hey, I'm Noam Weissman, and you're listening to Unpacking Israeli History, the podcast that takes a deep dive into some of the most intense, historically fascinating, and often misunderstood events and stories linked to Israeli history. Before we start, like I remind you at each episode, I love hearing from you. So shoot me a note at noam@jewishunpacked.com. If you have a brilliant idea, share it with me. If you have thoughts on an episode, I'm all ears. If you have a question, I'll do my best. Your insights are so helpful, they're so instructive, and they are critical to help the show going and really building on everything we've done and sharing the story, the complexity of everything about Israel. So please keep connecting with me. Shoot me a note at noam@jewishunpacked.com. Okay, yalla, let's do this.
אנו מכריזים בזאת על הקמת מדינה יהודית בארץ ישראל. היא מדינת ישראל.
We, the people of Israel, are prepared and anxious to meet the representatives of our neighbors without any preconditions.
There are people in Israel and elsewhere say it's impossible to make peace between the Arabs and Israel or the Jewish people. I think they are wrong.
I'm a pretty positive person most of the time, I think. I believe in trying to look on the bright side. I think. In silver linings, in glasses half full. I think. This way of living isn't forced. It's entirely sincere. It's an effort I try to make every single day. But that doesn't mean I'm not, sometimes, a spectacularly petty person. I have a long list of semi-irrational pet peeves. Pizza crusts with a flimsy undercarriage. The word yummy. I just don't like it. Don't ask. Not my thing. When people take out the trash but don't put a new bag in, come on. It's all part of the process. And when baristas call out iced brown sugar oat milk shaken espresso for Noam. I mean, okay, Noam isn't as bad as my producer Rifki getting called Rafiki. And I guess it's not as bad as whatever hate crimes get committed on a daily basis against the Hanans, the Chayas, and the Chavivs of the world. But still, Noam? It's not great. Not great. Sometimes I'd experiment with different names. Bob, Sam, Jeff. Shout out to our head of video at Unpacked, Jeff Handel. And then October 7th happened, and all my pet peeves started to feel like the stupidest and most pointless luxuries in the world. Until some brilliant anonymous soul came up with an idea. He or she encouraged the whole world to start giving the baristas a name with meaning and purpose. A name that both broke my heart and buoyed my spirits every time I heard it. It was the name of a person most of us had never met, but who so many of us grew to love. The name of a 23-year-old kid with dark hair and an easy smile, who loved people and music and travel, who greeted the world with open arms and great expectations, who had the confidence and the hope and the optimism to backpack through Europe for 9 weeks, hopping from festival to festival with only a tiny backpack and a ready grin. I started saying, my name is Hersh. Still, the barista would say, Kurt? This time I would actually correct them. No, Hersh. It is spelled H-E-R-S-H. By now, many people know his name and his smile and the devastating eloquence of his parents' pain. Millions of people heard John and Rachel pouring out their souls at the Democratic National Convention just 2 weeks before their son was murdered.
There is a surplus of agony on all sides of the tragic conflict in the Middle East. In a competition of pain, there are no winners. In our Jewish tradition, we say, Kol Adam Olam Umlo'o. Every person is an entire universe. We must save all these universes.
Like her biblical namesake, Hersh's mother, Rachel, has become a symbol of Jewish motherhood, of the agony of begging God for a child who does not come. Maybe you've heard her mighty scream from across the Gaza border.
Hersh! It's Mama.
And maybe you know that just 2 days after that devastating scream, Hersh finally came home. Or his body did. His soul had been returned to the Creator just hours before or after his parents stood on the border and called his name. I don't know how Rachel Goldberg Poland had the strength to say goodbye to him 11 months after he was stolen from her. I don't know how she stood there without collapsing, telling her baby that he was finally free.
Okay, sweet boy, go now on your journey. I hope it's as good as the trips you dreamed about, because finally, my sweet boy, finally, you're free. I will love you and I will miss you every single day for the rest of my life. But you're right here. I know you're right here. I just have to teach myself how to feel you in a different way. And Hersh, there's one last thing I need you to do for us. Now I need you to help us stay strong. And I need you to help us survive.
And I know I said before that I try to be a positive person, that my hope isn't forced, and that I believe in silver linings. And I know that it seems ridiculous and petty and small to talk about me in the face of someone else's horrifying tragedy and loss. But this news is terrible. Terrible, terrible news broke my already broken heart. I'll admit it. I didn't believe Hersh had survived initially. Not after the way he was taken, grievously injured, pouring blood, not in the tunnels, not with Hamas. And then just a few days before Passover, before Pesach, we got a sign of life. Hersh, his hair buzzed, his face gaunt and exhausted, but his voice so strong, so alive. Hamas had forced him to make a video criticizing the government, and his voice was so powerful, and it never wavered. And I began to believe. He would come home. He had to come home. He had so clearly inherited his parents' incredible reservoir of inner strength and light and hope. He had stayed strong. He had survived. And soon, oh God, so soon, his parents' agony would turn to joy. And every single one of us who put up a poster or gave his name to the barista or said a prayer in his honor would tune in to watch him come home, pale and skinny and missing a hand, but with that same irrepressible light in his eyes. 2 months ago, I interviewed Rachel and John. I asked them, well, you'll hear what I asked them. You know what I'm hearing, and it's hard for me in this, it's not about me, but it's hard for me in hearing some of what you're saying, because you two sound like incredibly non-cynical people. Like, just no cynicism. And it kind of like makes someone like me feel like when I'm at home and I'm feeling that cynicism, like, does this matter? They're like, what, a little yayush, like a despair that's just, and there's like anger. You don't sound cynical. And you also like don't sound, and maybe I'm wrong here, maybe it's inside, maybe you're faking, but like when people are sad, like when I saw you, I wanted to give you a hug. No, that's on me that I wanted to give you a hug. You probably didn't want a hug from me. But I feel this closeness, and I feel it like a profound closeness. So how do you not feel cynical towards me and others like me and maybe you do? And somehow, impossibly, from the depths of their anguish, they spoke to me about their hope.
No, we don't feel cynical. I don't think that that's a word I would ever say that we feel. Of course, we have moments of frustration and anger and sadness and despair, but I think overall they are moments. I think that there's a beautiful book about India called A Fine Balance. And the fine balance is the fine balance between hope and despair. And we have really tried very hard, very intentionally when we wake up to be hopeful. And we say hope is mandatory, that it's not advice, it's not a suggestion, it's mandatory. We're in an unimaginable place. All of the hostage families are in such an indescribably unimaginable place that we have to make decisions, and sometimes it might even seem robotic, but we're in such pain that you have to push yourself to keep going forward. And I don't feel cynical. I feel thankful and grateful that people care. I think that every little thing that people are doing matters. I do think that every single person who writes to the White House one line every day matters. I think everyone who puts on a piece of tape to just be carrying somewhere the existential weight with us, it matters. I do think if you go somewhere and you use Hersh or any other hostage name as your coffee order, it matters because it means that you're thinking about it. And somewhere, I don't understand the way the universe works, but you're helping carry our load. And we need help. The 120 families need help. This is too heavy. It's just too much. And so I am grateful and thankful. And everyone connects in different ways. There are people, we just came from somewhere where a woman came over to me and she said, At ha'ima, you're the mother? I said, yes. And she said, I say psalms for you all day, every day. And she doesn't know me. And she didn't even know my name. She just knew I was the mother.
She just knew I was the mother. That's Rachel Goldberg Poland. She's been thrust into every mother's worst nightmare. For 11 months, she has stood with her spine straight, her eyes fixed on the horizon, and in her devastating eloquence and her unending hope, she has become a symbol of all mothers, everywhere. She has become a mother to the entire Jewish people. Her words reminded me of the late great philosopher and leader, Rabbi Jonathan Sacks. In his book, To Heal Our Fractured World, he distinguished between hope and optimism. Quote, optimism and hope are not the same. Optimism is the belief that the world is changing for the better. Hope is the belief that together we can make the world better. Optimism is a passive virtue, hope an active one. It needs no courage to be an optimist, but it takes a great deal of courage to hope. The Hebrew Bible is not an optimistic book. It is, however, one of the great literatures of hope. So many of us actively hoped for Hersh's return, signed petitions, attended protests, delivered messages on social media. We tried, Rabbi Sacks, we tried. But maybe we didn't try hard enough. Because Hersh was killed. He did not die, he was killed. Executed with 5 other beautiful, strong, pure, innocent people. Hamas forced them, at some unspecified point in time, to record their last words as a final bit of torture for their parents and friends and community and country. And then, we don't know how many days or weeks later, they shot them all. Multiple times. At close range. And they left their bodies for young soldiers to find. These soldiers then said the prayer that all Jewish people say after losing a loved one. And I know. I didn't know Hersh personally, though I had the privilege to meet his parents. And I didn't know the other 5 beautiful souls who were murdered along with him. Eden Yerushalmi, 24 years old, who had stayed on the phone with her 2 sisters for hours before Hamas found her in a bullet-riddled car, the sole person alive among her murdered friends. Ori Danino, 25, who had escaped the attack on the Nova Festival, but went back into the inferno to save more people when Hamas caught him. Almog Sarusi, 27, who stayed with his injured girlfriend Shachar when Hamas attacked, refusing to abandon her. I don't know if Almog ever found out that Shachar died shortly after Hamas dragged him away from her. Alex Lubinov, 32, whose wife gave birth to a baby while he was in captivity, a tiny son he will never meet. Carmel Gat, 40, who had done yoga with hostage children in the first months of her captivity. And it feels in so many ways like there's nothing left to say. We just wanted them to come home. You know, my 6-year-old daughter just came back from school. I said, I have to run and record a podcast. She said, what are you recording about? I said, Israel. She started walking away. She said, don't you always record podcasts about Israel? I said, yes, I do. And she said, what about Israel? I said, I'm talking about the hostages who were taken into captivity. She goes, you mean the children? I said, yeah, the children. She just looked back at me and went forward and said, okay, go do it. And that was the end of our conversation. All we wanted is for them to come home. And yes, all we're doing is speaking about them because they need to be spoken about. They were alive until so recently. 11 months without a sign. And they were alive. And you can cry and you can scream and you can blame whoever you want. But at the end of that, they still won't be here. 2 days after we heard the news that Hamas murdered Hersh, I found myself at a Starbucks in the Miami airport on my way to an Unpacked event in Toronto. I ordered my iced brown sugar shaken espresso, and the barista asked what my name was. I looked at her and hesitated. She repeated, sir, what is your name? I paused again, looked her right back in the eye and said, Hersh. H-E-R-S-H. And then I thought back to all the people I met when I went to Israel this past July. I spoke with Hersh's parents, yes, and I spoke with so many others too. Jews on the right and Jews on the left, secular Jews, religious Jews, Arabs, Palestinians, Muslims, Christians. People who had lived in Israel their whole lives, and people who had emigrated to this difficult, fractured, heartbroken place. Strong, brilliant, resilient people who have experienced some of the ugliest, most difficult experiences imaginable, who are still experiencing new shades of grief, new iterations of sadness and rage, and who, despite all that, choose life, who love their lives. And that's the theme of today's episode. You may know how we normally do these episodes. We share a story about an event from Israeli history or broader modern Jewish history, Israeli-Palestinian conflict, one that maybe helps us understand the Jewish people and the broader story, understand the country, the state of Israel, and its people just a bit better. But this one is different. We're simply sharing a full, raw, unadulterated conversation, an interview between me and Yarden Tzemach, a third-generation kibbutznik, meaning someone from a kibbutz, from the devastated community of Beeri. Now, most people had not heard of Beeri before the 7th of October. I'd say now, so many people are naming their children Beeri, after the tiny community of 1,200 hippies and peace activists and humble, ordinary folks within walking distance of Gaza. Its main source of revenue was its famous printing house, which, fun fact that I just learned, prints all of Israel's driver's licenses. On October 7th, 10% of Be'eri's residents were murdered. 101 civilians, 31 security personnel, and 32 hostages, including Carmel Gat, were stolen from their homes. Among those murdered, 31 security personnel was a 39-year-old man named Yarden Tzemach. These are such clinical terms. Security personnel. 39-year-old man. Casualty. Yarden Tzemach was bigger than all those words. Who was he? I'll tell you who he was. He was a husband to Ofri, a father to Ella and Netta, a son to Shlomit and Doron, a big brother to Itai, Shai, Ido, and Yarden. All of them lived in Be'eri, within feet of each other. On the 7th of October, Yarden was celebrating a friend's bachelor party with 14 other men from Be'eri. But their peaceful day on the beach was interrupted by the barrage of rocket fire, and then the frantic WhatsApps from their partners and parents and friends. They rushed back to their homes and their partners with their children and their siblings, but the army wouldn't let them into Beeri. So Yarden couldn't know until much later that his big brother Shachar spent 7 hours defending his home. 7 hours fighting the terrorists who poured into Israel that day, holed up in the kibbutz's dental clinic until the ammunition ran out. It would take days for Yarden and his family to learn what happened to Shachar. When I spoke to Yarden back in July, he only had a few months to learn how to live without his big brother. But even from the depths of his grief, he spoke with compassion, with empathy, even with gratitude. Gratitude when he's in mourning, when his home was destroyed, when his big brother was killed, when his big brother is gone. I'm Jewish, yes, but no, I'm not an Israeli. I'm not Israeli. Very often, there is just something so raw and remarkable about Israelis' dispositions. There just is. Yarden and his family exemplify resilience for reasons you'll understand when you listen to the interview. So even though our hearts are broken, even though things feel dark right now, and they are, I hope Yarden's interview will give you something to hang on to. Amid the unbearable pain, some wisdom, some resilience, and yes, even some hope. Yarden, so good to meet you. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Where'd you come from?
I came from Beeri.
You just came down from Beeri?
I just came down from Beeri. I'm one of the 150 residents that came back to live in Beeri after October 7. I was actually the second one to come back. And I'm there since November. I came back to live in Beeri full time. And yeah, I'm in Beeri most of the week and traveling around for events.
Before October the 7th, I think very few people had heard of Beeri. If you live outside of Israel, I'm referring to, you know Tel Aviv, you know Jerusalem, maybe you know Haifa. But Beeri is not a town that people were aware of. Unfortunately, it's become, I want to say, almost a famous town, a famous kibbutz. So could you just tell me a little bit about life in Kibbutz Beeri before the 7th of October? Who was there? What was it like? What does it mean to be on a kibbutz? What's a kibbutz?
Yeah, so of course nobody knew Beeri before October 7. It was a small private town. We were just 1,200 people. It's a big kibbutz for a kibbutz. Average kibbutz in Israel is probably few hundred people, but it's a kibbutz. It's a community. It's a small community. We were very private. Unfortunately, everybody knows Beeri right now, not for the best reasons, but it is what it is, and we had to get used to it. But growing up in Beeri, I'm third generation in Beeri. My grandparents arrived to Beeri in 1950.
Wow.
So I'm third generation in Beeri. My father was born in Beeri. I was born in Beeri. I'm part of 5 siblings, part of a big family. We have 5 siblings. And, we had really the best childhood that you can imagine. Going around barefoot in the kibbutz, going to visit your grandparents, your parents, visiting your friends, you can walk around to visit your friends, everybody outdoors all the time. And it's not just a nostalgic thing. It was still like that on October 7. My 5-year-old niece used to go around. I used to go around in the morning to the kindergarten by myself. When you are 4, 5 years old, you can already go to the kindergarten by yourself. It's only a couple of 100 meters, but still, imagine how it's like to feel safe enough to send your children, your daughter or your son, to the kindergarten by himself. And my 5-year-old niece used to do the same.
It sounds like the Zionist dream in many ways. Just living.
Yeah. You live next to your friends, next to your
insecurity.
Siblings, insecurity. We did live with the rocket threat for over 20 years. Right. We can't ignore that. But in a way, we learned how to deal with it, and we got used to it in a way. It's a sad thing to say, but we did learned how to live with it and how to deal with it.
Sounds very Israeli. Like you learn how to deal with missiles coming at you.
Yeah, and Beeri kept growing all the time. We could never keep up the demand for living in Beeri. It was a place that everybody wanted to live. So we were always on a place that once we finished building a new neighborhood, we started building the new neighborhood, then another new neighborhood.
Because you're always growing.
Over 80% of those who were born in Beeri, eventually we all live in certain point. But once you want to start your own family, you want your children to have the same childhood that you had. And for us, to born in Beeri and to grow up in Beeri, in a kibbutz, it's the best way to grow up. And everybody wants it. So over 80% of those who were born in Beeri eventually come back and raise their children in Beeri and start their family in Beeri.
And what about the religiously, politically? What are people like religiously and what are people like politically in Beeri?
Traditionally, kibbutzim are not exactly atheist, but chiloni type of secular, very secular.
Would you do Shabbat in any way or no?
So traditionally, in kibbutzim, not really. It was very secular. In the past several years, the kibbutz has become more. All the kibbutzim, and in Beeri included, became more diverse.
Right.
So we have more people that are traditional and people who keep kosher, and I like it.
Did people fast on Yom Kippur there?
Yeah, I fast. For example, I didn't used to fast in Yom Kippur in the past. Now I do. Many people fast. Some people keep Shabbat. Some people keep kosher. It's very diverse.
Okay.
And also politically.
Politically, it's diverse?
Politically,
I'm talking about before the 7th of October.
Yeah, even before October 7, as I said, traditionally people used to be more on the left, and everybody used to vote for Mifleget HaAvoda, let's say 30 years ago.
The Labor Party.
The Labor Party. Let's say if you would go 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 90% of the votes would go to this specific party. Now it's more diverse. We have people from the right and from the left, and most of the people.
When you say now, do you mean even before?
Before October 7. I'm talking about right now. I'm talking before October 7.
Okay.
We don't know. I don't know exactly
Right.
because we didn't have an election since October 7. But even before October 7, I think people in Beeri and in kibbutzim in general, they had the same transformation that people in Israel had, which is from the left to the center. And in the last election, there was more parties that consider themselves center. Most of the votes in Beeri went to the center, but also to the right and to the left. So it's more diverse than it used to be 20, 30, 40 years ago.
So tell me what the day, if we could go back to the 7th of October. We don't know each other. But what's crazy to me is at this point in time, I'm in New York. I'm in synagogue. I'm in shul. It's Simchat Torah for me, right? And it's a very joyful day. And we hear news. We don't know what to do with the news. It's getting worse and worse as we hear this. And then we start hearing about this place called Beeri. I'm supposed to know a lot of Israeli history. I knew very little about Beeri. Now I start hearing all about Beeri. And you're a third generation Beeri person. What was that day like for you? Describe what it was like. I don't think you were there that day, but tell me what it was like for you and for your brother. What was it like?
Yes, I'll tell my perspective. Of course, there were 1,200 people in Beeri on that day. Each one has a story. I'll tell very shortly my experience on October 7. I was away on that day. I was camping on the beach with friends. We were celebrating a bachelor party for a good friend of mine. So we were all 15 of us, all from Beeri. And once we realized, we woke up, it was near Ashdod, which is between Ashkelon and it's a little bit north of Beeri, about 1 hour north
The
of Beeri.
southwest part of Israel.
Yeah, it's center-south.
Center-south, okay.
So it's about an hour north of Beeri. We all woke up 6:30 a.m. to an alarms or the sirens of rockets going from Gaza towards Israel. Of course, we had no idea that there are terrorists coming to Beeri or something like this, but Beeri is just 2.5 miles from the border. So we realized if there are sirens in Ashdod, there must be sirens in Beeri also. We packed our stuff and headed back we're driving back to Beeri because most of us had wives and children. Many of us had wives and children in Beeri. And what we usually do, as I said, we are kind of used to rockets, but people who have young children, what they usually do is once the rocket starts, it starts once a year. It usually goes on for once or twice a year, and it goes on for 24, 48 hours, exchanging of rockets, let's say, between Israel and Gaza. And what people with young children mostly do is they take their children elsewhere to be with family or somewhere else, so to prevent the trauma from all the explosions and the sounds of war sounds and everything. So we were on the way driving back to Beeri when south of Ashkelon, the army closed, the IDF closed all the roads, and then we start through the WhatsApp groups in the kibbutz and through our families that are back in Beeri to realize that there are terrorists in Beeri. And we couldn't go to Beeri, and we all had families back in Beeri. We didn't know what to do. I was part of the security team of the kibbutz for the past 7 years. And I had rifle in my home, and I was like, what can I do? How can I help? And the army didn't let me cross the checkpoint towards Beeri. I wanted to fight. I wanted to be with to be there with the community, to help in any way that I can.
Were you panicking?
I don't remember panicking. I feel like I was very driven, like task-oriented. I was like, okay, this is what it is.
A mission.
What can I do? What can I do? So I thought, what can I do? What can I do? I have a former general from Beeri that is my neighbor. He lives close by, maybe 100 meters from me, even less. And I called him. I told him I have rifle in my home. He doesn't have a rifle. He have a pistol. I have rifle in my home. I have magazines. I have helmet. I have everything. I told him, where is my gun safe? What's the combination to the safe? He went out. He took my rifle and he joined the security team. And I felt good in a way that my gun is not just locked in the gun safe, because of course I thought, like the rest of the Beeri or like the rest of Israel, that okay, there are terrorists, but first we thought there are few terrorists. We didn't realize that there are hundreds of them. And then we thought, okay, the IDF is going to come in 15 minutes, 20 minutes. That's what they always told us. This is what we always trained on as part of the security team. We always trained that if by any chance there will be terrorists in Beeri, first of all, there will be few. We trained on 5, 6 terrorists. This is what we always trained on. Okay, we have to either eliminate the terrorists or to close them in a specific area where they are. And in 15 minutes, 20 minutes max, the IDF will come. So this is what we always trained on. And this is, of course, what we thought is going to happen. And of course, when the minutes passed, we realized the IDF is not coming as quickly as we thought. And eventually, the kibbutz endured, and the security team of the kibbutz were fighting by themselves for 7 hours until 11 of them were fighting against hundreds of terrorists for 7 hours until eventually the IDF arrived in the masses. The rest of my family, as I was away, trying to support my family from a distance, the rest of my family was there. As I said, we are 5 siblings in my family. My parents were in the eastern side of the kibbutz. Gaza is to the west, 2.5 miles to the west. My parents live in the eastern side of the kibbutz, so they had some time to prepare. I also talked to them through WhatsApp. I told them they should prepare because I was in the WhatsApp group of the security team. I told them that you should prepare. So they went out of the safe room for a minute. They took some water, some snacks. They took a power bank, and they took the most important thing is that they took 2 hiking poles that you can adjust the length, and they tied together the handle of the safe room and to the frame of the safe room, and they tied it together. So when the terrorists did eventually arrive to their home around 10 or 11 a.m., they couldn't open the door. My parents were quiet, not in front of the safe room door, because by then we realized that the door is not bulletproof and people were murdered through the door. They were just holding the handle when the terrorists were shooting them and murdering them. So we already realized that by that time. So my parents were quiet in the corner, turned off all the lights. And when the terrorists did arrive, they tried to open the door for several times. They couldn't open the door. I'm not sure if they knew my parents are there or not. But since my parents live in the corner of their neighborhood, this is what saved them, because the terrorists took position in their home and they waited there to the IDF to arrive. They waited with machine guns, they waited with grenades, with RPG launchers, with everything. And they spent the whole day in my parents' home while my parents are in the safe room. They spend the whole day in my parents' home, some of them in position, some of them just lying on the couch, smoking, drinking, opening the fridge, eating from the fridge, destroying things, stealing things. They shoot on the television for no reason. And my parents are hearing everything, locked in their safe room the whole time. They even took my parents' credit cards and bought stuff online while my parents are in the safe room. But eventually the IDF managed to arrive there during the night, to arrive to my parents' home and to kill the terrorists over there. But the fighting in their neighborhood was so intense that they couldn't be evacuated. They had to wait with the soldiers in their home the whole night, and only the next morning they were eventually evacuated. The rest of my brothers and sister, my youngest brother lives very close to my sister, so he was moving to be with my sister. They were together in the safe room the whole time. They were saved by a miracle. A neighbor of them, they had two terrorists in their doorstep when a neighbor of them, who was a soldier in a Shabbat holiday from the army, had a rifle, and he killed the two terrorists in their doorstep. They didn't even realize it. Only when they were eventually evacuated, they saw 2 dead bodies on their doorstep and a pool of blood on their doorstep. And then later on, we realized that their neighbor killed the 2 terrorists. So they were evacuated during the late afternoon, saved by a miracle. My other brother, also saved by a miracle. In both sides, he lives in the kibbutz, in the youngsters' neighborhood. Maybe people saw it in the media. We call it a train. It's like small house, one next to each other, very small houses, like a studio houses, one next to each other. So in both sides of this train, we call it, there were terrorists, only on his. For some reason, they didn't get to his house, so he was also saved. He has special needs also, so he wasn't going to fight or anything like that. He wasn't even going to fight for the handle.
So he was just in the house.
He was just in the house when there are terrorists around him the whole time.
They just didn't go in.
They just didn't go in. And he was also saved by a miracle. He was evacuated on the same bus along with my youngest brother and sister. My oldest brother, like me, was in the security team of the kibbutz. When he realized around 7 a.m. that there are terrorists in Beeri,
It's Shachar.
Shachar. when he realized in 7 a.m. that there are terrorists in Beeri, he took his rifle and his equipment and his gear and left his wife for free and his 2 children, Ella, 5-year-old, his 5-year-old daughter, Ella, and his 2-year-old son, Neta. He directed Ofri how to put the baby's bed under the handle of the door of the safe room and how to put the fridge in front of the main door. And he went out to fight, to protect the community, to fight the terrorists. And he was fighting for 7 hours in the dental clinic where they kept the injured members of the security team. He was in a strategic point of the kibbutz next to a very major junctions, two junctions.
Yeah.
He was fighting there, protecting the injured members of the security team and the medical team of the kibbutz that was there. And he was there fighting for 7 hours, managed to shoot and kill many terrorists, tens and tens of terrorists, preventing them from arriving to a certain neighborhood in the kibbutz, which was also his neighborhood, where he left his wife and 2 children. And for 7 hours, he managed to fight along with Eitan, another guy from the security team. They were fighting there for 7 hours, eliminated any terrorist that tried to cross the road to this neighborhood. But eventually, after 7 hours, the IDF was still not there. After 7 hours, they ran out of ammunition, and then the terrorists managed to get closer and to murder them, the medical team of the kibbutz that was there, and some of the injured members that were there. There are 2 survivors from this fight. One is one of the injured members that was there. He was playing dead when the terrorists arrived. He was already injured. He was full of blood and vomited on himself and everything. So he was playing dead when the terrorists arrived. And the nurse of the kibbutz, Nirit, were hiding in the bathroom. And also, by a miracle, the terrorists didn't find her. Didn't open the bathroom door. So they were both saved by a miracle. This is how we know the story. And we lost my brother. We lost my brother. He was the oldest brother. We were just 1.5 years apart, me and him. So we were growing up almost like
Best
twins.
Friends. Best friends?
Yeah, and we were all the siblings together. We were best friends, and I'm very happy that we managed to. 6 years ago, we went all the siblings on a hike in Switzerland, and it was 14 days hike, and we did 1 week, and for years we said, and we stopped because it was bad weather back then, 6 years ago, and since then we said every year, we are going to do this next summer. We are going to accomplish it. Next summer we're going to accomplish it, and we did it. And the last summer, just a few months before October 7, a year ago, in July, we accomplished it, and we had another 1 week together. The whole siblings. Of course, we didn't know then that it will be our farewell from my brother, from Shachar. But I'm very happy that we had the opportunity to do it together.
Thank you for sharing all that. I have an older brother, I have a younger brother, a younger sister. It's hard and impossible to imagine that feeling.
Yeah.
But what feelings do you have? Walk me through what was your journey of emotions since the 7th of October? Some people I've heard, have said, I was on one side of the political fence, and now I'm not going to be talking to Palestinians anymore. I'm done. I'm done with dialogue. It's over.
Mm-hmm.
We have to fight them. We have to beat them. We have to win. And it's us or it's them. If it's us or it's them, we're going to fight them. And that's the way I feel. Where do you go emotionally after the 7th of October? And what has the journey changed over time?
I'll talk emotionally first. On October 7, I felt until the day we found out about my brother, which was only about on Monday, because the fighting in Beeri went on until Monday morning. They were still fighting in Beeri. So we couldn't get any information about my brother until Monday. So I was very task-oriented on these 48 hours, first to support my family from a distance, and then to get any information of my brother. I was the whole Sunday since we reunited with my parents. The rest of the siblings, we really reunited with my parents, and of course my sister-in-law and my niece and nephew were evacuated during the night. So we were just waiting for my parents. My parents arrived on Sunday morning. We all met in Tel Aviv, and then the whole day on Sunday I was looking for any information for my brother. I tried to talk to friends of mine that are in the reserves, if they can go there, because they were still fighting, if they can go to the dental clinic. And I was very task-oriented. I wasn't in an emotional state.
You were just feeling a lot. You were like, I have to take care of something.
Yeah, I felt like I have a responsibility, and it's not time for emotions right now. And of course, once we got the message from my brother, the news, of course, it was devastating. We were devastated. But we had to support each other as a family and to be there for each other. And the kibbutz is a community. We lost my brother, but also I lost some of my best friends on that day. Community members. We lost 101 members from Beeri. So
out of 1,200.
Yeah, you don't know how to handle it. If you would tell me a year ago that you would lose 101 members of your community, including your brother and some of your best friends, I would say it's impossible. I would be broken and it was devastating. And for the first couple of weeks, all we did is you can't even just sit shiva for your brother, because you have to go for your best friend's funeral and another parents of your best friends that were murdered. So you can't even sit shiva for your brother because you have to be in so many funerals. There were some days of 15 funerals a day. And we had crazy dilemmas whether we are going to this friend's funeral or another friend's funeral. It was all in the same time. And while still mourning for my brother and trying to support my family, I also tried to be there for my friends, and we were all there for each other, trying to be there for each other and trying to figure out what we are going to do with our lives right now, because our home is destroyed and our communities were murdered and destroyed. And it was crazy weeks, and to say the least. But for me, after these couple of weeks of just, funeral after funeral and shiva after shiva, I felt like I need to do something positive. I need to be active. I can't just sit in a hotel in the Dead Sea, which was a great place for the community to be, because, it looks like not just the whole country of Israel, but the Jewish world came for our support.
I was there.
Yeah, you were there.
I was there.
And people came from all over the world. All the therapists in Israel were there.
Right.
People gave us clothes because everybody were evacuated with nothing but the clothes on their body.
I saw the way you ran school. Kids in different areas of the hotel having class.
Yeah.
With I don't even know who it was.
Yeah, so we had to figure out schools. We had to figure out kindergartens and everything, because in the Dead Sea there is no such things. It's a hotel. It's a place where people go for holiday. And for me, I felt like I need to be active. I need to do something positive. And I went back to Beeri after a couple of weeks. At first, we did whatever we needed to do in Beeri, which was people psychologically, and it was still, first of all, it was still dangerous to go to Beeri. We had to go with rifles everywhere. Every time I went to my house or my parents' house or something like this, we were like we are in Gaza. You have to open door, like you train in the military, like you are.
But were the houses? They were all. What happened to the houses? Weren't they burned?
Some of them were burned. About a third of the houses were totally destroyed. Another third, somewhat destroyed but fixable, and another third were undamaged. But still, after a week and a half, when I came back, it was we were still not sure whether there are terrorists, hiding in the ruins. And we did find the terrorist eventually. After a couple of weeks, there was one.
Really?
We don't know if it was a civilian or terrorist or Nukhba terrorist. It doesn't matter. We found him after 2 weeks. He was hiding in the ruins.
What happened to him?
The Shin Bet took him.
The Shin Bet took him. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know eventually what happened to him or what was his, if he was just a looter that was caught in or a terrorist, but it doesn't really matter. So it was still not really safe to come to Beeri after a week or two. So we had to, first of all, to go to people's houses, and people were telling me, can you go to my house and bring me my passports, my wallets, my phones, my jewelry box, my albums, my memories. Can you pack it up and give it to me so I send these kind of things to the Dead Sea, whatever people asked me, along with other friends that were there with me, even to houses that everybody were murdered, to a family where everybody were murdered. We went into the houses because it was October, at the beginning of November. It was starting to rain. Some of the houses were destroyed. We didn't want things to be, before it was raining and everything will be destroyed. We went and we took the albums, and we took everything that we thought it is important, and we packed it and put it in some kind of container in case somebody will ever look for it, to save the last memories, because so many houses were destroyed and burned that people lost everything, including their photo albums and their memories, along with, of course, their loved ones. So we try to save as much as we can, and about 3 weeks after October 7, we were coming back to work. I was in charge of the orchards in the kibbutz. I'm growing avocados and the mango in Beeri. We have about 1,000 acres of orchards in the kibbutz. And before October 7, we were relying on Palestinian workers to pick our fruits. Mm-hmm. And of course, that wasn't possible. And basically, we didn't want any Palestinian workers to come to work with us. But we had to pick our fruits. We can't just. For me, it's not even an option to say, okay, we were murdered, we were destroyed. I'm not picking these fruits. So these are my fruits. I want to pick them, and I want to come back to work. I want to do everything I can to rebuild Beeri, and the rebuild of Beeri starts with the basic things: going back to work, cutting the lawns, cleaning the houses, taking care of our home. So we went back to work. We posted in social media and through the media, through the television and everything, that we want to come back to work. We need volunteers to help us picking the fruits. And it was amazing. Buses and buses of people came every day. It was still not safe. We had soldiers that were protecting us everywhere we went. But people came. They were not afraid. People came from all over. I was about to say from all over Israel, but basically from all over the world. Yeah. We had people came from the States or from other places, stopped everything they are doing just to be with us. And they were there for months in a row to be with us. And it was heartwarming. I'm still getting emotional thinking about it. The amount of love and support that we got and still getting since October 7. It's amazing. And, the people of Israel are amazing. The Am Israeli is amazing. I just came back 2 weeks ago from a delegation of Kibbutz Beeri to the States. And again, the amount of love and support that we have received, there's no word to describe it, really.
So that's
that's what keeps us going. People ask us, how do you have this resilience to keep going and to rebuild your home? It's not coming just internally. It comes because I feel that Am Israel and the people in Israel and the Jewish people around the world are with us in their heart, or whether it's in their heart or boots on the ground in the kibbutz to help us picking the avocado, help us cleaning the houses. And this is what gives us the strength, is the support of the people and the love.
So do you feel as though when the question is asked, what does it mean to win the war? There are a few options. Option number one is to return the hostages and get the hostages back in a deal. Option two is to have, in Hebrew, it's called, an absolute victory. It's a chon muchlat, right? And option three, what I think of is, it will be known that Israel got out of this war, was victorious, and whatever that means, when Be'eri is built, rebuilt, and people feel comfortable and safe living there.
First of all, I don't think it's I think that these options are not, they can be aligned.
They're not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, it's not mutually exclusive. First of all, the most important thing is that we still have 11 hostages from Be'eri in Gaza Strip.
At the time of this recording.
July
14th.
In July 14th, we still have 11 hostages from Be'eri. 7, we know that they are dead. They were either murdered on October 7 or were murdered later on in Gaza Strip, including in the tunnels under the Shifa Hospital or in other places. Itai Zvirsky and Yossi Sharabi were kept along with Noah Argamani, and they were murdered after 99 days. So we know 7 are dead, but we still have 4 that we believe that they are alive. And the most important thing is to bring them back. The word absolute victory, it's a nice slogan, but the Palestinians will still be there. They're not going anywhere. And they will always hate us. And I'm not sure if always, but they will keep hating us for a long time, at least for a long time.
You think the Palestinians will always hate?
I think they will keep hate us for a long, long time.
Did you always think that?
I think not always, but I do, but I didn't change my mind since October 7. I changed, of course, I realized it more in more profound way since October 7, but I started to realize it about 10 years ago.
Did you not want to believe that at a certain point in time? I mean, did you go through a phase in your life?
First of all, I didn't grow up thinking like that. My surrounding didn't think like that. My environment was more leaning towards the left.
What that means is that you were more, your surroundings were more into coexistence and there are things that we could do to bring peace between Palestinians and Israelis, and that's the way you were brought up.
Yeah, this is the way I was brought up, and since I became adult and started to question the core beliefs that I was growing up, as any adult should do in a way. It doesn't matter that you have to go to the other side, but you always, in order to think, you have to question your beliefs all the time. So I was less in the left and more in the center. Let's say.
You stopped believing that fully.
I stopped believing that. I think peace is an ideal. It's always great to go towards the ideal, but I don't think it's realistic. in the next years to come.
So because you think that the Palestinians as a whole just hate the Israelis?
I don't think Palestinians as a whole. No, not at all. I think mostly in Gaza Strip.
So the Palestinians in Gaza hate...
In Gaza, since it's not something about the race of the Arabs. I don't have problem with Arabs in general. I work with Arabs. I meet Arabs every day. My grandfather was a professor for Middle East and studies and Arabic culture and language and etc. I was, since I grew up, I knew Arab people. I was visiting. I also visited Gaza. My grandfather had friends in Gaza. But since Hamas, not just Hamas, but even before that, the school system in Gaza, also in the West Bank and Judea and Samaria, but mostly in Gaza, where Hamas is dominating, is that in the way they brought up and the way they are, if you would look at their school system and what they are teaching in school, it's impossible for someone to to go to the school and not hate Jewish and not hate Israelis. It's not something that it can be changed, but it will take many years. You need to change the school system. You need to the radicalization of the Palestinian society, or at least the majority of the Palestinian society, in order to have peace.
Meaning because the Palestinian educational system that you see in Gaza is so antagonistic towards Israel, towards the Jews, that there's simply no way that they can feel peaceful towards Israel.
Exactly, and it's not like they are exposed to other ideas. This is the only thing they know. So of course they will think that way. But for us, what it means is we have to keep our security and our safety. So I don't think. First of all, I don't think peace is coming in the next few years. There will have to be it will be a long process until it will be possible to have peace. But also the absolute victory is not exactly, because we say in Passover, "Bechol dor vador kamim alenu lechalotenu."
Every generation,
there is every generation people. We will always have to live on our swords as an Israeli, as a Jewish people. There will always be. They're
coming to kill us.
Yes, people will always hate us and kill us, and try to kill us, whether it's in Israel or in the States or in elsewhere. There will always people that won't like us, and we have to realize it, and it's part of being Jewish, I think.
Wow, so to use different language, there's an existential condition in which the parts of the non-Jewish world simply hate the Jewish world, whatever Israel, whatever the Jewish people do, and that's life.
I don't think everybody hates us.
Not everybody.
Not everybody, but there are people around the world, also here in the Middle East, that hate us, and around the world, But I'm not. I didn't mean to say that everybody hates us. No. I came back from a delegation in the States. I met with the evangelist Christians. Right. Yeah. I went to some churches in Wisconsin and Illinois. And the amount of love that we received there was amazing. And we love the evangelists. They love us. We love them.
An interesting marriage.
Yeah, it's an interesting marriage. But it was fascinating to meet them, because I never met an evangelist Christian. But I think there are many people who love us, but there will always will be those who hate us. So we have to accept that there will always be somebody who doesn't like it.
What feelings did you have when you look back at the 7th of October and since? What are your feelings towards the Israeli army? Meaning, how do you deal with just hearing your story? 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours. Where were they? What's your answer to that?
It's still a good question. We got the investigation the guy who investigated what happened to the IDF on October 7, General Mickey Edelstein came to present the results of the investigation. I must say that I heard the results and I still don't understand where were the IDF on October 7. They were caught, we say in Hebrew, with their pants down. They were caught.
We say that in English.
Ah, okay. So not only in Hebrew.
Not only in Hebrew.
So they were caught with their pants down, and they were not prepared. They were not preparing. And I still don't have a good answer for that. So of course the army failed miserably. The IDF failed miserably. Whether it was in the years and in months and days before October 7, leading to October 7, or on October 7 itself, of course. And, I never thought something like this will happen. I want to believe that the IDF has learned the lessons. We felt safe before October 7. Now we know that it was some kind of an illusion.
An illusion, yeah.
So we are not naive anymore. We will not feel safe again unless things will really change.
Speaking of naivete, would you have Palestinian workers come and pluck your fruits now? You would do that?
Not in the near future, no.
Because
right now I'm in a position in my life that I don't trust them. Maybe in the years to come I will gain a trust again, but right now, no.
What do you want people who are listening in the United States of America or Canada or Australia, South Africa, United Kingdom, wherever they are? What do you want them to know about you and about Beeri? And what do you feel when you see college campuses and just saying nasty things about, I guess, you and me, but really you? Yeah. So how do you feel about that? What do you want to share with everyone there?
First of all, I want to say again, the most important thing is that people to realize that we still have hostages, whether from Beeri or from other places, that need to be brought to bring them home. Second of all, whether if it's people in college campuses, really to ask yourself question and try to educate yourself a little bit better about the conflict and about what happened on October 7. And you might heard a certain side of the story. You need to really educate yourself and to listen to people like me and others who experienced what we experienced, and to really understand the roots of the conflict. But if you ask what you want people to know about Beeri, is first of all, I want, as I said, we have the hostages, but the other thing is our grandparents established the kibbutz in 1946. When they arrived to this region, there was nothing. There was just dust and no tree. You would stand in where Kibbutz Beeri is now, you wouldn't see a single tree in the horizon. The land was not cultivated. There was just dust and dust. Sometimes there were the herds of Bedouins, nomads, coming through, but there was no settlement over there. And they created the most beautiful place. For us, it's the best place in the world. And we want to come back to rebuild this place, and we will come back. We will build it better and bigger than it was, because this is our winning over what happened on October 7, and this is our resilience. It's to rebuild Beeri, to come back there, to build it bigger and better than it was. And that's what's the important thing is, to realize it didn't break us. We were beat very, very hardly, and it was very hard, and it's still very hard. But we want to come back. We will come back, and we will rebuild our home, rebuild our community, and make it. And we will hope the rest of the communities will follow. But we want to set the example for the rest of the region, and to set the example for the rest of Israel that we are coming back. And I think people are looking at us to see how we will act, whether we will give up or say, okay, we don't want to live near the border. Some of us might even live elsewhere around the world or in Israel. But no, we want to come back. We will come back. And the government and the IDF need to give us the terms and the felt of security that we can come back and we can have a thriving community again.
Last question for you, 10, 20 years from now. 10 to 20 years from now, what do you see? And how are you going to get there? Do you care about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? The history? Does it matter to you? Meaning your focus is Beeri. But 10 to 20 years from now, what do you see? And how?
I hope, first of all, I hope that in 10, 20 years from now, we will have, first of all, with all our neighbors, which is Saudi Arabia and other countries next to us, we can have an agreement and normalization. This is what I believe that will eventually push towards peace with the Palestinians when the neighbors will be in normalization with us. And I hope eventually that in 20 years from now, I'm not very optimistic about it, but I hope that in 20 years from now, we are 2.5 miles from the border of Gaza, which means that we are about 5 miles from the beach. My father, after the 1967 war, the 6-day war, could take his bicycle and drive to the beach of Gaza. I hope that our children and our grandchildren will be able to do the same in 20 years and in the years to come after that.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Yarden. Thank you so much for taking the time to share a story. And I'm so sorry for what you've been through, but I'm also incredibly inspired by your approach to dealing with tragedy, which is to say, what could I do about it now? And that's what it sounds like has been your mission since. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.